So this is my jack-o'-lantern, and this is a demonstration of how you use Adobe Illustrator to trace a piece of art. Now, unfortunately, I no longer have the jack-o'-lantern that I originally used for this project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate parts of this to give you an idea of how I did this without the bitmap. So in other words, this piece that I created, I'm going to use as the bitmap that I'm going to trace. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to open up my layers palette so that you can see my layers. And I just want to briefly explain to you a little bit that in the end, having layers like this is very important because you can isolate certain parts of the piece onto layers, which you can then name. And then you have all kinds of nice organizational things that you could do with this piece to make it easier for you to go back and modify it later on. Very much like what I'm going to do here. I'm actually not going to be modifying it. I'm going to be recreating it. But it's the same basic ideas. So I'm going to show you quickly. First of all, this is my face layer. And if I click on this, which is the toggle visibility button, you can see that the face goes away and it comes back. So there's the face. That's the elements that I use to create the face. The next one says key. And essentially what I'm calling the key is this element right here. It's the one piece of the pumpkin that you see both edges of. The rest of these you only see one edge of. Okay? This element right there is the element that kind of sits in the middle and it establishes the center point of my pumpkin. Now, watch when I hide that key. You see what starts to happen here? You start to see that you've got these shapes that I'm more or less creating, and I'm actually playing around with their color to give me this pumpkin-y kind of look. So that's the key. And then, of course, when I close the pumpkin layer off, that's those elements. And then we are left with the stem up here. And, of course, there's a couple of areas of pumpkin that fall behind the stem, so they end up on this layer as well. And then finally, we have the shadow down there. So those are all the elements together, and I'm going to click on all the eyeballs to bring them back. And now you're looking at the entire production right here. Okay? So that's basically the first thing that you're going to want to do. We're looking at this at the end of the production. So what I'm saying is that you would probably be starting off with the pumpkin layer, and then you would be adding the stem layer and adding the shadow layer later on. So the key and the pumpkin would be where you would be starting. You'd be starting by creating your pumpkin elements, and it would be the pumpkin and the key. That would be the two that you would do. The last thing that you would be doing would be the face, the stem, and the shadow. All right? So I'm just giving you an idea of how you approach something like this. The other thing I want to show you, I'm going to go to the window menu, and I'm going to open up the Swatches panel. All right, now here in the Swatches panel, what I've done, let me put this in here with the other. Okay, so what I have in the Swatches panel basically are all the colors that I have used in this. So I can go in there and I can click on this, and there is my color. All right, and it's probably that color right there. I don't know, maybe I didn't get that one in there. Let me see. There, okay, so I basically loaded that color in there. All right, so some of these colors I did not get. This one here, it looks like that might be a different color as well. So basically what you want to do is you want to, in the end, you want to load all the colors into your panel. And you could even give these names if you want. All right, I'm not going to worry about that right now. So that's the other thing. You want to get rid of all the colors. Let me show you what I'm talking about. File, New. When you open up a new document, I'm just going to throw this open real quick so I could show you. See what happens when you open up a new document? When you open up a new document, you get all these colors. They don't relate to anything. So basically what I do when I start any kind of a production, like this kind of illustration, the first thing that I do, I come over to this, which is the panel menu, and I click, and I come down and I find where it says select all unused. See it? Click on that, and what it's doing is it's selecting any color in here that I haven't used. And then I'm going to delete that. Yes. So now and this I don't need because it's a duplicate black. So now what I'm left with is none, registration, white and black. From here, I would build whatever kind of work that I'm doing. I would build it, and I would create my palette of colors as I build. So that's the other thing that you're going to want to do when you work on a piece in Illustrator. All those colors that are in there are just default colors that they populate to give you some colors to start off with. But if you're doing any kind of serious work at all, you're going to remove all those colors. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. I'm going to close this because I don't really need this file. There. Okay, so we're back at this. All right, so let me close that off and bring back the layers. So what I want to do now is I want to pretend that this is the piece of art that I'm going to trace. Notice that I have a layer at the very top here called Trace. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the art. First of all, make sure that none of your layers are locked, because you can lock all these layers. I'll show you in a minute. All these layers are unlocked. I've selected everything on every layer. You can see all the layers have these little indicate selected art buttons showing, meaning I've selected everything. And what I'm going to do now is go to the object menu. There are other ways, Control-G, but I'm going to go to the object menu and click on group. And I've grouped all this, and notice that it actually put them all on the face layer. I'm going to drag this indicate selected artwork up until it's on the trace layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that trace layer all the way down to the bottom of the stack. So this is now the layer underneath everything. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the window panel, look for transparency, and I'm going to set the transparency, or actually the opacity, down to, say, 50%. And since this is a grouped object, the whole thing goes 50%. If I didn't group this, each of those objects would be 50%, and it would be a total mess. So that's the next thing that I want to do. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I want to be able to clearly see the artwork as I create it. And by having this slightly transparent, I just think it makes it a little more easy to do that. So that's another step that you're going to want to put into this. And I'm going to keep this out as well because I probably will need that later on. So the next thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to come over to the trace layer, and I'm going to lock that layer. By locking that layer, watch first of all when I don't lock that layer, can you see how I can select things? Well, I don't want to be able to select anything. So by locking that layer, I'm no longer able to select anything on this layer, the trace layer. It's locked. I'm safe. So I can now draw, and I will be drawing on some other layer, and I will not be disturbing anything on this layer, which is perfect. So this is as close as I can come at this moment to having the piece that I originally worked on. Okay, so basically the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing some of this. Now, the important thing for you to understand here is that I'm going to be using pretty much the pen tool for all of this project. So first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to bring the pen tool out, and I'm going to have its relative tools out with it as well. I probably also can use the pencil tool, but I think the pen tool will probably be easier. Now, before I actually begin drawing this thing, remember I told you that I have a key and then I have my pumpkin. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw that key, which is right there, because I think that key is going to be very helpful to me. Before I begin drawing, though, I just want to show you something that you might find interesting. I'm going to go up to the View menu, and I'm going to choose Outline. And I'm showing you what the outline of this project looks like. So here you're actually seeing the outlines of all the different elements that I used to create this piece of art. These are all the paths that are created, and the paths are what we're using to put the fills in to create the illusion of this pumpkin. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the view menu, preview, and now we're looking at it. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and use my pen tool, and I'm going to click and I'm going to start placing my, and I'm doing this in a very random way. This is another thing I want you to understand here, is that this is a pumpkin. It's a natural thing. If you take a look at a pumpkin, they're not very regular in appearance, so you don't want these lines to be incredibly neat. You want them to have character, and you get character by kind of playing little loose games with it. Now, notice that as I do this, so I'm going to continue working around here, and I think I actually knocked myself off my line, but I fixed it. And I'm going to end in a second. I'm going to end the key. There's my key shape. Okay, a couple of things I want to take a look at here, and that is that shape there is probably a little bit too big, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to probably drop this down a little bit. Okay, view, fit artboard and window. Okay, so there's my key. There's my key element, as I explained to you. So that's all there is to it. Now I put this element, it's on the key layer. From this point forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the other, and I'm not going to draw the whole thing. I'm just going to work in this direction because I want to show you how to put together a few of these and then how to draw one of these shapes here. Because the way I drew one of these shapes is a variation on every one of them. So I don't really need to show you every one of them to get you the idea. Really, that's what I'm trying to do here, is to just give you enough information that you could go in and try this for yourself. So the next thing I'm going to do again is get the pen tool, and oh by the way, I'm going to lock the key layer now because I got the element on the key layer pretty much the way I want it, and I'm going to lock it. So I'm going to come in and get the pen tool, go to the pumpkin layer, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to click and I'm going to start drawing my next piece of the pumpkin, which is, you know, again, I'm going to just draw lines around here. I don't want them to be precise. I want it to be natural, like a pumpkin. The gradient that's going on this thing is not the right gradient. It will be fixed in a little bit. Now, when I get to this point, notice that I'm down here, and there is the point where I started. I'm going to go all the way up to the top, and I'm going to click. And now I've actually created that first object. I'm going to come to my swatches, and I'm going to try clicking on that swatch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my gradient tool, and I'm going to play around with the gradient, the positioning of the gradient. So I'm going to fix the gradient on this, and probably needs to drag this over a bit. That's probably a little bit better. There we go. Maybe move it over some. Perhaps move it back a little bit. And then perhaps move this over a little bit. That's probably good enough for the time being. So can you see already I'm beginning to get the shape for the pumpkin. So that's the next one. I'm going to do the next one. Again, use the pen tool. Come over here, click, and then come up and click and drag. And then I'm going to move over to here, and I'm going to drag it just a tiny bit. I'm trying to get the lines to be a little bit uneven, and I don't want them to be perfect. I'm looking for this kind of natural feeling that you get from this pumpkin. And then once I get down to here, again, I'm going to come up and I'm going to click, and now I've created that shape. This shape, let me see, what happened here? Yeah, this one here, since the next thing to understand is that there's a stacking order in this. And as I work, I'm creating objects that are in front of all the other objects that I create. Now, I want this to be behind this. So what I'm going to do is go up to the Object menu, Arrange, Send Backwards. And there I've sent it now behind that one. So now you can see I'm moving in this direction. Now I don't want these gradients to be exactly the same, so I'll click on the gradient and get the gradient panel open for a second so I can see this. I can come in here if I want. That's the transparency palette. I can get the gradient window, gradient. Okay, there we go. That's what I want, the gradient. And what I can do with the gradient palette is I can play around with the angles on this. Like for instance, I can click on this and I can change the angles to, let's say I'm going to change it to 19. Let's see what that looks like. That's probably a little bit too much. I'm going to bring it back to 11. Let me try it 29. Let's try 29. 29. I'm looking for it to go right about to there. That's probably okay. And then maybe what I will do is I'll drag this over just a bit. That's probably good enough for our purposes. So there's a couple of ways that you could do this. I'm going to create another one so that I can show you. But you can already see that I'm getting a pretty nice looking pumpkin. And again, if you want, you can come over here and you can open this guy up and you can, you know, change the direction of this thing by just dragging this, by dragging this. So, I mean, you can make this look exactly the way you want it to look just by maneuvering it around a little bit. All right? So it's totally up to you how you want your pumpkin to look. It's up to you to decide that. And when you finally get it the way you want it, you know, you can then move on. So there's 1, 2, 3. I got one more, and that'll give me enough to show you how I can make my face elements. All right? So I'm going to do one more of these things. Click on this. And again, remember what's going to happen now. This thing is going to go in the front because I am working within the stacking order, and the stacking order places everything in front. So I'm just going to come around, work around, keep coming down. All right, and I'm not going to get this thing to look exactly the same. It's not important that I do, because the bottom line is this is just a demonstration, and you can make this look a lot of different ways. Now I click on that, and I'm going to go Object, Arrange, Send Backwards, and it looks to me like, let's see here. Yeah, I got to go one more time backwards. Object, Arrange, Send Backward, and there we go. And the only thing I would really want to do with this perhaps is play around with the gradient on it. And let's try, I think I probably enjoy this a little bit better. I think this is probably a better way for me. And yeah, this I like a little bit better. And I think maybe what I'll want to do is bring that up and bring it over a little closer, and then bring that in and maybe swing it around a little bit. Too much. You know, again, you got to play with this a little bit. That's the whole thing. Got to play with this a little bit. And drag that out some. Bring that over. That's probably pretty good. That'll work, I think. That's probably all right. Good enough for our purposes. You get the general idea. That's the important thing. So here I have now built this part of my pumpkin. I would go over on this side and I would build the pumpkin from this point over the exact same way. Okay, so that's that. So that more or less gets me done with demonstrating how I do this. So I'm going to come back to my layers palette, and I'm going to hide the pumpkin for a second, because what I want to do is I want to draw one of these elements. Now I'm going to say this to you. These elements basically get drawn the same way. So once I show you how to do one of these, you really will do the same thing with the others. It's just really a matter of them being different sizes and having slightly different shapes to them because of the perspective involved in it. Okay? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide the key. And one of the things I noticed about this is that the face, the one of this eye is missing part of it because it's out of position. It should be in front of the key. So I'm not going to pick that one. I think what I'll do is I'll probably pick the nose, because the nose has most everything that I want you to see me do. So that's what I'm going to render. I'm going to render the nose. And I'm going to choose the, I'm going to lock the key layer and the pumpkin layer now, and I'm going to click on and select the face layer, and I'm going to work on the face layer. So the first thing that I'm going to do with this is I'm going to select default black and white, and I'm going to remove the fill. Now, so I just have a black stroke. I'm going to get the pen tool, get it from over here, click, and I'm going to come down and click and drag a little bit, and then I'm going to come and drag a little bit, and drag, and then I'm going to come around. I'm just literally drawing this thing in a kind of free-flowing kind of way. Maybe, you know, even put some kinks in it. You know, put some definite kinks in this because you want it to be a little bit on the uneven side. And that's it. I mean, that's all there is to literally drawing this thing. It's not that hard. Now, what I want to do is I want to create this piece, and I want to create this piece. And I also want to create this piece. So this piece here actually is the piece that I have already created. These pieces I'm going to recreate. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to go Edit, Copy. I'm making a copy of this piece because I'm going to need more than one of them. Okay? So now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to go Object, Lock, Selection. Now that piece that I had there selected is locked, and it'll no longer be available to me to mess with. It's locked. And I'm going to go Edit, Paste in place. What I did was the copy that I made, I paste in place right in front of the one that's... All right, so now I'm going to get my pen tool again, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to start drawing the shape that I need for this. And again, you see what I'm doing? I'm creating this very irregular looking shape. Each time I do this, it's going to look a little different because, you know, I'm not going to get the same feel for this or the same touch for that, but it'll come across the way I want. Then I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to click outside the shape, and I'm going to come up to here, and I'm going to close the shape. Okay? So now I have this shape right here, and I have this shape right there. Can you see those two shapes? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Window menu, and I'm going to open up the Pathfinder palette. The reason that I'm going to open up the Pathfinder palette is because I want to divide the shape up. And to do that, I'm going to use this command here called Divide. And when I click on this, watch what happens. I've actually now created a division of these shapes. Now this is grouped together. So I'm going to go Object, Ungroup. And watch this. I'm going to click on that shape outside there, and I'm going to hit Delete. And you see what happened? I now have a shape right there, and I have the shape right there. Isn't that great? So I actually have created, and I'm Control-Z to bring it back, I've actually created the piece that I need for that element right there. I'm going to do the very same thing down here to create this element. Actually, the point I'm trying to make with this is that if you just know a little bit about the program, you're going to find this is incredibly easy to do. So what I'm going to now do is get the pen tool again. This time, I'm going to come over here, click, and then I'm going to click over to here and drag, and then I'm going to click there and drag, and I'm going to click here and drag, and click there and drag, and click there and drag. And see again, what I'm doing is I'm creating this kind of shape, see? And I'm going to click and drag and click, and then come out here, come down, over, up, and connect. And now what I've done essentially is I've created this shape. I've got three shapes now that I have to divide. Now watch how this works because this gets a little tricky. I'm going to click on that shape. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, click on that shape. Then I'm going to click on this shape. And I'm going to divide all those shapes. And I'm going to go Object, Ungroup. Now watch what I do. I'm going to take this shape. I'm going to hit Delete. I'm going to select this shape right here. And then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select that little shape right there. And I'm going to combine those two shapes. Boom. So now what I have is, check this out because this is really great. I got that shape right there. This is the one shape that I need right here. This is the other shape that I need right there. And this is what's left over, which I don't really need. So I can delete that. Then I can come in here and I can bring this shape back and put it in place. I can bring this shape here and put it in place. Okay, and I didn't really put it in place very well, but you get the idea. I get it in place, and that's about right. And now I can go Object, Unlock All, and I'm going to hide my trace layer so that you can see this. So here is my shapes. This shape here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my colors, and I'm going to click on that, okay? And then I'm going to use my, my gradient tool to help me fix the gradients on this. And I'm going to change the direction of it a little bit, which is more like what I had, I think. Yep, that's probably pretty good. I'm going to let it go for now. Click on this one, and let's see, I got to bring it back for 1 second because I don't remember exactly how this bottom one looked. That one looked, okay, so it was kind of bright. Okay, that's good enough. So now what I'm going to do is click on this one, and I'm going to click on that, and that's probably pretty good, except maybe what I'll do is I'll play around with the gradient on that one as well. Move that over like this, and maybe change the direction of that slightly. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. Okay, and then click on this one, which has now been unlocked, and click on that one. And what I will probably do with that is the same thing, get my little gradient tool, and maybe what I'll do is I'll set my gradient over here and drag this out a little bit. Maybe drag it out quite a bit. Let's drag it out quite a bit, and then move this over. And then go View, Fit, Artboard, and Window. And let's take a look at what that nose looks like against my pumpkin and my key. There you go. Now the only thing is, what you're going to want to do here is you're going to select this, I think. Let me just take a look at what the original looked like. The original looked like, yeah, I removed the strokes. So what you're going to do with this now is select this thing and remove the strokes. And there you have it. There's your nose. So that's how I create. And again, this needs to be tweaked a little bit. It isn't exactly right, but I think you generally get the idea with this. That, you know, once you get this thing going like this, you can come in here and you can tweak this a little bit. Maybe tweak it a little bit. Geez, it's giving me a hard time. Let me try to get in here and tweak this just a bit for you so that you can see what I'm talking about. Maybe click on that thing. Okay, so I'm going to drag this up like that, and then I'm going to move this over like this. There we go. And see how I'm trying to make this thing show a little bit more there. That's probably a little bit better. That's right. Okay, View, Fit, Artboard, and Window. That's what I was trying to do. I'm trying to get you to see this a little bit. And I don't really think that I don't think this is quite right either. So I would have to, you know, ultimately mess with this a little bit to get this thing to work in a way that looks a little bit better. And I think that's beginning to look a little bit better. Okay. So anyway, there is how I created my pumpkin. There is how I created my elements that are the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, and they all are basically done this way. I would go in and I would just render out the area that I want in as one solid piece and cut it apart like I showed you. The top up here, the piece that is the stem, is rendered more or less the same way. I'm going to click on stem here, and basically with the pen tool, I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to start drawing lines and dragging and creating an unusual shape. Again, there's no rhyme or reason to this. It's just a stem. So it's got to look kind of twisty and gnarly and, you know, irregular. That's the whole point of it. Oh, and by the way, this thing here should probably be just default black and white, and remove the fill so that you could see what you're doing. And I just come in here and draw this thing out. You know, keep working around. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to show you one. and then come around and draw your stem. Keep drawing the thing until you get down in here. And again, you're going to close it off. And then I have color that I've actually used for this in my swatches. I don't know. I think it's that one. Yeah, it's probably pretty good, except maybe I might want to modify the direction of my gradient somewhat. Let me, oops, Control Z, hit it the wrong way. I want to maybe change the angle of that. Let's try it like that. Yeah, that's probably pretty good. And then maybe drag this up somewhat. That's probably all right. That's good enough. You get the general idea. And of course, you don't have a stroke on that. Okay, so there's how I created this. And notice that it falls behind here. Okay, now the last thing that I want to show you how to do here is how to make this this nice little shadow down here. So basically what I did for the shadow was with the pen tool, once again, I come over here and I click, and I click, and I click, and I click, and I created another irregular shape, trying to kind of follow along the overall outline of this thing. And it doesn't have to be too exact because eventually I'm going to modify it quite significantly. But you want it to look sort of like the shape. Okay, and then you're going to bring it in here, and then you're going to come over and you're going to connect it over there. This is going to be basically just black. Okay, and not black stroke, not black stroke, but black fill. So there's your black fill. And then what you're going to do with this is you're going to, number one, go up into the effects menu, and you're going to come down and you're going to go blur, Gaussian blur, and you're going to click on the radius, and there's the radius. It's probably too much, so I'm going to drag the radius back down maybe to about, that's probably good right there. Hit OK. So there is my shadow, but the shadow is a little bit too strong. So there's two other things that I want to do here. I want to go into the transparency. Let's see if I have the transparency out. I don't think I do. No. Window, transparency. There we go. Window, transparency. And the transparency I'm going to set to multiply, because multiply is the setting that you use to create proper shadows and things. And I'm going to set the opacity on this down to about 50%. Okay, maybe, yeah, 50% is probably pretty good. And file, save. And now what I'm going to do is come in here, and I'm going to hide that. And you can kind of see how I've created these objects. This is pretty much how I've created all the objects that you see in this. And I'm going to unlock this now, and I'm going to select the whole thing. And in the transparency palette, I'm going to come back and set this to 100% so that you can kind of see the end result. And if I click on this, and click on that, you can see I'm not too far off of what I did. So that basically is it in a nutshell, how you do this. I'm going to end the recording right now. I'm basically done. Thank you very much.